In a quiet county, four young men were on a journey. One night, as darkness fell completely, they found themselves in a remote area between a village and the town. Fortunately, they spotted an inn nearby and decided to seek lodging for the night. However, the innkeeper apologized and said, "I'm truly sorry, all the guest rooms are full tonight." The travelers pleaded, "This place is in the middle of nowhere. We're strangers here with nowhere else to go. Please, can't you make an exception and find us somewhere to stay, just for the night?" The innkeeper hesitated, then said, "Well, there is one room it's spacious enough, but I doubt you'll want to stay in it. My daughter-in-law passed away recently, and her body is currently being kept in that room. She's set to be buried tomorrow. If you're not afraid, you're welcome to stay there." The four young men were bold and travel-worn. They exchanged glances and said, "It's fine, as long as there's a place to sleep." "We're not picky, sir, please show us the way." The innkeeper led them to the room. It was indeed large. The corpse of a young woman lay on the floor, covered with a white cloth. In front of it was a small altar, where a few white candles flickered dimly. The light cast eerie shadows across the room, but it wasn't pitch black. Because the room was originally a guest room, it still had 4 beds, just what the young men needed. Too tired to care, they lay down and quickly fell asleep. But in the middle of the night, one of the young men was awoken by a strange clicking sound, faint, rhythmic, coming from the direction of the body. He turned his head cautiously and looked toward the corpse. What he saw made his blood run cold. The woman's corpse slowly lifted the white cloth covering it and stood up. Her long hair hung loose around her shoulders, and she wore a ceremonial funeral gown. The dim candlelight kept her face obscured in shadow. The young man was paralyzed with fear. He realized this was no ordinary corpse. It was a reanimated ghost. The ghost bride walked slowly toward the beds. He watched through half-closed eyes, barely daring to breathe. She bent over each of the sleeping men, and to each one, she gently blew 3 breaths. Then she came to his bed. But this young man had already covered his head with his quilt and held his breath. The ghost still blew 3 breaths toward him, but since he was awake and not breathing, it had no effect. Afterward, the ghost walked back to where she had been lying, carefully lay down again, and pulled the white cloth over her body, just as she had been before. Shaking, the young man tried to wake his companions, but no matter how hard he shook them, they didn't respond. Their bodies were cold, their limbs stiff, they were dead. Horrified, he crept toward the door, opened it as quietly as he could, and ran barefoot into the night. But just as he bolted out of the room, the ghost leapt up and began chasing after him. The inn, you'll remember, lay between a town and a village. He ran toward the village as fast as he could, heart pounding. Seeing lights ahead, he began shouting, "Help, please, there's a ghost after me!" But the village was silent. No one answered. He wanted to knock on someone's door, but feared if he stopped, the ghost would catch him, so he kept running. Finally, he saw a temple. Inside, he could hear the sound of a monk striking a wooden fish in evening prayer. Relieved, he banged desperately on the temple door, screaming, "There's a ghost chasing me, help!" But the monks inside, upon hearing there was a ghost, were too afraid to open the door. By then, the ghost had arrived. Thinking quickly, the young man saw a huge tree outside the temple. He ducked behind it, trying to hide. The ghost noticed him. She walked to the left of the tree, he moved to the right. She circled to the right, he moved left. She couldn't catch him, so finally, she thrust her arms straight into the tree through the trunk, trying to grab him from the other side. Eventually, the monks, hearing silence outside, gathered their courage and opened the door. What they saw froze them in place. The ghost bride stood motionless, her arms thrust through the tree trunk. On the other side of the tree, the young man lay on the ground. He had been scared to death.